What's going on, guys? Co-leee-co Vision here, and today we're doing a new type of video. It's going to be a predictions video on the Week 1 college football season of the Pac-12 teams. So I'm going to be doing prediction of each game on the Pac-12 schedule. Obviously, there's been one game already. Cal played Hawaii, and they won by 20 points. They destroyed Hawaii. Good offensive showing, and relatively speaking, good defensive showing. Even though they did give up 31 points, they did put in the backups towards the end of the game, I think. So it's not really. It was a good showing by Cal, and yeah, they had their quarterback. I think his name was David Webb or something like that. He got a couple touchdown passes, threw for a couple hundred yards. He looks pretty good. But I'm gonna be going on the next games on the schedule. I think the rest of the teams play September 2nd and the 3rd. K-State plays Stanford on the 2nd, and I think the rest of the Pac-12 plays on the 3rd. So let's start off with Washington versus Rutgers. So they play Washington Rutgers. They play September 3rd, 11 a.m. in Washington. It's a home game for the Huskies. I think it'd be an easy win for the Huskies. They're 14th in the nation. They have high expectations, obviously. They went 6-6 last year, and they finished 4th in the division, the Northern Division. But they made a lot of improvements. A lot of their guys are older now. Miles Gaskin, Jake Browning, they're older. They're more experienced. They have more chances of success. Jake Browning had a good freshman season last year. Had a couple good games. Won the Apple Cup. Won a bowl game. Was not necessarily disappointing. They had a tough schedule last year. They played Boise State week 1. They played Stanford. All the ranked Pac-12 teams, USC, Oregon, all those teams. They were all good, and they did play Washington State, and they destroyed them the final game of the season. They were 20th when they beat them. But the main problem with Rutgers, they have a new offense. They have spread offense now. They have a new head coach. A lot of the players are young, but the main problem is going to be their offense. But that's not going to. I don't think the Rutgers offense is going to do too well. The Washington defense is going to have a lot of returning starters. It's going to have a great defense. They were first in the Pac-12 last year. Hopefully they'll repeat that this year, and their team looks pretty good. I think they'll get an easy win, 35-10 over Rutgers. Not a strong opponent, not strong at all, not ranked. They are a power conference team, but they aren't necessarily a strong team, so I think it'll be an easy win for the University of Washington. Next game, Stanford versus Kansas State. This is going to be a really tough game for Kansas State. 8th-ranked Stanford coming off a Pac-12 championship and a Rose Bowl blowout win over Iowa, who won every game in the regular season and played in the Big 12 championship game. K-State's coming off a mediocre season, 6-7 record, losing record, and they lost their bowl game against Arkansas in very convincing fashion. Arkansas blew them out. They did have an early lead in that game, but that's besides the point. K-State, they've had success in the past. I don't think this is their year. And they're playing a really tough team in Stanford. I think it's going to be a closer game than most people think. Kansas State's an improved team from last year. Stanford is as well. They're being led by Christian McCaffrey, Heisman runner-up. He's going to look really good this game, have a big game. Maybe win the Heisman this year. That's my Heisman prediction, actually, Christian McCaffrey. And Stanford's going to get the easy win. Not necessarily a blowout, but 38-28, 10-point win over Kansas State. The next matchup is going to be Oregon versus UC Davis. Obviously, Oregon's going to win this game. They're going to get a very easy win. If they do lose, the huge upset. UC Davis is not a strong FCS opponent. The big storyline for this game, for the Oregon Ducks game, is going to be the quarterback battle and, some position battles here and there. It's going to be like a preseason game for Oregon. They got to go to Pruckup, I think his name is, and Tyler Johnson. But they have a few quarterbacks neck and neck in a quarterback race, so depending on how they do in this game, it may determine how well they play or how much they play in the future. I'm expecting an easy win for Oregon, 43-10. Not too much to say on this game. FCS opponent, week 1. Oregon's going to get the win. They usually win. They usually play, easy opponents week 1. But easy win for Oregon. Go to 1-0 in the season, taking their season opener at home in Oregon. So unlike Colorado, Oregon State is going to have to rebuild this upcoming year. They are going to have to rebuild. They have a new quarterback. They have new players. Simple rebuilding things. I don't think they have the same coach though, because he was first-year coach last year, I think. And They're playing Minnesota week 1. Minnesota is going to be a very tough team to beat, especially for Oregon State, because Minnesota is not necessarily a pushover. Obviously, they're a power team. They did okay last year. They made it to a bowl game, winning record, and they've been at least okay for the past couple of years. So they've been a decent program, and they're playing Oregon State, which has been not necessarily a very good program for the past couple of years. Um, so I think it's going to be a Minnesota win. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a blowout. It's going to be a close game, 20-14 Minnesota win over Oregon State. Oregon State's going to do relatively well. They're going to do better than most people expect. You know, it's going to be a close game, good defensive showing. They have a new quarterback though, a new team in general, so it's going to be a tough game for Oregon State. It's a away game, season opener. I think they'll do better this year. I don't necessarily think they'll make a bowl game, but I do think they'll do a lot better, win a couple games in conference play, and maybe go 5-7, 4-8, which is a lot better than 2-10. So I'm thinking this season opener game for Oregon State is going to go in Minnesota's favor. Colorado State versus Colorado, in-state rival game, Rocky Mountain Showdown. It's going to be a good game, nationally televised on ESPN. Um, Hopefully Colorado will look good. I'm obviously rooting for the Pac-12 teams in each and every one of these games. But they're playing Colorado State. Colorado State finished 7-6 last year, 5-3 in the Mountain West. I think they lost their bowl game. I'm not sure. They might have won it, but I think they lost the bowl game against Nevada, Arizona Bowl. Um, they're playing Colorado. Last time they met, it was high-scoring overtime win. I think 27-23. It was a close game though. I'm not sure if it went in overtime, but it was a close game. It's always a close game between these two schools. You know, the rivals. Even if Colorado State does terrible one year, they still can give Colorado a run for its money each and every year they play, because they are a rival and they play each other every year, so they know the ins and outs of each another. So I think it's going to be a Colorado win, 28-20. I think they're going to score a touchdown last second of the game and go for two with like a minute left, and then just to make sure they get the win, so 28-20. And yeah, it's obviously, I don't know if you consider it a rebuilding year for Colorado. I don't really consider it that. They've been rebuilding for the past couple of years. They have improved over the past couple of years. They were 0-12, and they went like 3-9, and they're 4-8. So if they win again this year, they keep winning, go to a bowl game, maybe get a winning record, and turn out like the Washington Huskies. Maybe if they keep winning and they keep recruiting well and they keep building upon what they already have established. They don't necessarily have a bad team established right now. So if they keep winning and they win the season opener against Colorado State in a rivalry game, it would be pretty big for the Colorado Buffaloes. Arizona versus BYU. Arizona coming off a disappointing season. BYU coming off a miraculous season. A pretty good season for them last year, winning record. They had a bunch of Hail Mary wins last year, a bunch of freaking ridiculous wins. Arizona coming off a win against, I think New Mexico was in the Mexico Bowl. New Mexico State, actually. I think Arizona's going to get the win here. 35-30, high-scoring game. Arizona has not necessarily an established offense as of yet. They have the run game. They will have it once they start the game, though, but they don't have a starting quarterback named yet. They do have a running back, and I think Orlando Bradford or something like that, and Wilson. They're both going to be leading the team this year, not the quarterbacks. They're going to be co-starters, obviously. And I think that Arizona will have not necessarily a good season, maybe a 9-win season, including a bowl win, and finish third in the division. So I don't know. It's gonna be tough to predict what's gonna happen with Arizona, but I think they're gonna get the win here in the season opener against BYU. Next matchup: Arizona versus Northern Arizona. Easy win for Arizona, 35-0. Playing against a FCS school. Not a pushover. I'm saying this again. They're not a pushover, but they are an FCS school, so I'm expecting a big win. Defensively speaking, I'm expecting a very good defensive showing. Maybe a little bit of problems here and there on offense, but defense should be looking really good. Maybe a pick six, maybe a couple pick sixes, maybe a fumble, return for a touchdown, but I'm not expecting them to give up a single point against Northern Arizona, and have maybe offense will need a little bit of extra talent here and there, in a few positions, see who they want to start, a quarterback, who they want to start, a halfback, those kind of things. But it's going to be a preseason game. Obviously, it's like they're playing against the FCS, and I'm expecting an easy win for Arizona State in their season opener. Next matchup, Utah versus Southern Utah University. Another easy matchup for a Pac-12 school. Nothing too special here. Southern Utah is not necessarily a pushover in the FCS. They did make the playoffs. They gave Utah State some trouble last year. Utah State's not a power opponent, though, so it's going to be like a preseason game for Utah. Looking at their passing game, their quarterback, Wilson, new quarterback. If he does well here, even if he doesn't do well, he'll probably stay at the quarterback position unless a backup comes in towards the end of the game and does a lot better than he does. But he's set in stone. The roster is really set. They're gonna look at the pass game here. The pass game's gonna be a big emphasis on the game, on the what they're gonna look for, what they're gonna correct in the following weeks. But easy win for Utah, 38-0. You know, it's an easy win, 1-0 in the season, and yeah, FCS opponent. Easy win for another FBS school. Next matchup, USC versus Alabama in Arlington, Texas. Neutral site game. This is going to be a tough game. ESPN prime time. USC, they're playing the top team in the nation in Alabama. Established program. They have a great offense, a great defense. They can drive down the field experience, coaching staff experience, team. USC, on the other hand, they have a new quarterback in Ricky Town. You know, Jalen Green, decent receiving core. USC is not a bad team. It's just they're playing such a good team. They're not gonna be able to move the ball that much in this strong Alabama team with their defensive line, especially. You know, the run game is gonna be tough to move. It's gonna be tough to block for the quarterback, especially since I think the offensive line's I think it has a couple freshmen on it, so it's gonna be a tough game for USC. I don't think they're gonna win 48-30. I don't know if they're gonna necessarily get blown out that bad. They're gonna lose by 18 points. Not that much, really. Technically speaking, it's not that much of a point differential. But they're playing Alabama, so it could be a lot worse. Could be a little bit better. If USC does win, it's a major upset. They are 20th in the nation. They're not necessarily a pushover, but they're playing Alabama, and Alabama is a tough team to beat. Alabama is one of the national champion predictions of the year to repeat. They did win it last year. They beat Clemson in the thrilling, high-scoring matchup, beat Deshaun Watson, Heisman runner-up, SEC favorite. So, yeah, I'm not looking at this game and towards USC's favor, obviously. So Alabama's going to get the win. I think this is going to be not the first Pac-12 loss, but this is the first Pac-12 loss I'm going to predict today. The next matchup we're going to be analyzing is Eastern Washington versus Washington State University. Washington State, they have Luke Falk. They have a good offense, a good pass attack. Running game is not necessarily fantastic, but it's not necessarily terrible. They are playing an FCS school in Eastern Washington, so I'm expecting big numbers from the Washington State offense. You know, Luke Falk should get over 300 yards, and River Craycraft and Gabe Marks should have big games, and some backup receivers, some no-name guys should get some touchdowns, some big plays too. Hopefully WSU offense can hold strong. Eastern does have a strong offense. They have Cooper Kupp. They have a decent quarterback. Eastern Washington has been known to be very difficult for Pac-12 teams in the past. In the past couple of years, they're like 143 and 136 combined score between Pac-12 and Eastern. I don't think they haven't beaten a Pac-12 team since Oregon State, which is back in 2011, I think, when they had Vernon Adams on their team. But every time they've played a Pac-12 team, it seems they've always been competitive. Back when they played Washington, they almost beat them in Washington both times. It was like 43-55. It was something ridiculous. And the time they played, when Vernon Adams was there, they threw 7 touchdowns against Washington. So maybe they can get an upset here, but I'm expecting a high-scoring game. But WSU will come out on top, a fairly comfortable margin of victory. Nothing too special, but it'll be 45-28. I think it'll be similar to the Oregon Eastern Washington game. Washington State will be a little rusty to begin with, but nothing too bad. They'll be able to win. Hopefully, it won't be like the Portland State game last year where they lost in a low-scoring defensive battle in the first week of the season. Washington State's usually a little bit rough in the beginning of the season, but if they can get the win against Eastern Washington, I think their season will be off to a good start. Eastern Washington's a tough FCS opponent, 14th in the FCS, so If they can get the win against them, I think their season will go on good. But they should get the win. It's an FCS opponent, so yeah. Hopefully, WSU will get the win against Eastern Washington. UCLA versus Texas A&M, the final matchup I'm going to be doing today. I think it's going to be a win for UCLA. This is very reminiscent of the Texas A&M Arizona State game last year, and Arizona State got destroyed by Texas A&M, who was unranked, and Arizona State was ranked. But I think UCLA is going to get the win today, or not today, but when they play. Josh Rose is going to have a good game. It's going to be a good offensive showing, a really good defensive showing, especially with that D-line, UCLA. And I think they'll get the win. Going to be a very good one. SEC opponent, though. SEC is always tough to play against. People say they're overrated, which I do agree. The SEC may be a little bit overrated, but they do have a very good conference for football. But I think UCLA will get the win, and they will beat Texas A&M 21-14, and that will close out my predictions for the Pac-12. So to cap off my predictions, I think every team in the Pac-12 is going to win, with the exception of USC and Oregon State. Oregon State because they're playing a team that is much better than them, and Oregon State is not a good team this year, and USC because they're playing the top-ranked team in the nation. I'm going to be doing future predictions for each week in the season. I might expand my predictions to other conferences or other games that I want to do. It could be FCS or FBS. It could be Division II, whatever games I find interesting. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy, please leave a comment, a like, and a subscription. If you enjoy videos of this type and videos that are similar to this topic, then please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys later.